Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the next level of Abnormal Voyages. Today we're here at the National Video Game Museum in Frisco, Texas. Let's press start.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
Like all video games, we begin at stage 1. This covered the very beginning and birth of video games. When video games were bright and shiny, the new thing, there wasn't really a direction to go in. There was nothing to judge them off of. So people very much threw stuff at the wall to just kind of see what stuck, what really got the imaginations of the public going. As you can tell, these first ones were very simple and to-the-point games, very much like Pong, which was extremely popular. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite things here was actually a giant replica Pong that you could actually play. I don't mean to brag, but I absolutely won every single game that I played there that day. So, if you're up for a Pong challenge, let me know. Beginning with the Atari 2600. This takes you through the history and timeline of video games. Mega Man and Tetris were among some of the earlier creations, still very popular today. And then, of course, plenty of Super Mario Bros. Stuff all over this museum. If you notice, there's even some games there that are based on the Bible. Especially in the early days, they would make video games out of pretty much anything. Here's an autographed Xbox, the original system. And a couple of games that went along with all of that. Even some of the work from Toe Jam and Earl. Longtime gamers might remember that duo. We're then introduced to the PlayStation, as well as the Nintendo 64. These are some components that were actually part of the systems, some tester cartridges there. And then further down, we get a look at the Game Boy, which completely revolutionized handheld gaming. But we'll get to more of that in just a little bit. This giant Super Nintendo controller was hooked up to these screens, and in my opinion, gave one of the coolest interactive things in the entire place. You could actually scroll through, seeing all the different systems that have ever been created. You would select one, and then you would get a bunch of information about it back from the time of when it actually came out. You would get the price, some of the big games that were out on that system, and it was just really cool to kind of get this overview of any of the systems that you were interested in. Here we have the Game Boy Color, retailed for $79.95, and then a little of those facts on there, as well as a couple of great games. And, just so you don't have to be content with only seeing it on a screen, they had a physical representation of all these systems throughout the ages, laid out on a timeline here for you to see. Started all the way with the Atari, and went all the way through to the most current system generations with the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. Comes to the development of video games, you actually have first-party, second-party, and third-party creators. Third-party are companies who purely make games and do not have anything to do with the parent company. As you can see from all these Frogger versions here, it's quite easy to have different versions of the same properties. Activision is an extremely popular, to this day, gaming company, third party who creates games for all consoles. However, not all third-party games are winners. If you look back through history, one of the most notorious games to ever come out was Action 52, a cartridge that had, as you may guess, 52 games. Their star attraction was the Cheetah Men, which is widely believed to be one of the worst games in all of history. They have quite a collection of stuff from the creation of this game. We've got some drawings here of the characters. I mean, they were very dynamic looking, that's for sure. There's a sealed copy of the actual games there, and then a couple open ones. I'm sure they went to a lot of places to gather all this together. There's some actual notes during the development of the game. A score sheet, and then some concept art that never quite made it. I think it'd be pretty sad to say that your stuff wasn't even good enough for one of the worst games ever. To be fair, the characters actually looked pretty interesting. They wanted this to take off, and it just never quite got there. However, it does have a cult following that is all based on the fact that this game is pretty awful. We actually got a chance to play it, and it did not take long to agree that this game is very challenging, I guess would be the nicest way to put it. Some of the most iconic pieces of video game lore is, of course, controllers. This was an awesome collection that just kind of displayed all the different types of controllers that have come out. They actually had quite a few controllers that I personally had never seen. Like, of course, you have the regular controllers that go with the system's wheel, know and love. But quite a few very unique ones have come out throughout the ages. Pretty much anything that could be a controller, they kind of made into one. Like, of course, the infamous Power Glove and things like that. But here, we even had a game that was purely done by typing. And of course, there's several games like that, but this one was a shooter game where you're taking out zombies based on how fast you can type a word. One of the first major revolutions in gaming was taking those arcade games you loved so much and getting them in your homes, and then after that, it was taking them with you on the go. Portable gaming has been a staple for as long as games have been out, and there has been several iterations of different portable systems that you could slip in your pocket or throw in your bag and bring around with you. Of course, the Game Boy is probably the most popular of these, as Nintendo has always been a major player when it comes to portable gaming. Different accessories and peripherals were even created for the Game Boy, so that your gaming could be that much more fun and more immersive. One of the best things about handheld and portable gaming is that it made it more accessible and more of a modern day thing to have video games as part of an everyday life cycle. No matter what kind of games you liked or how much time you had, there was a portable system just waiting for you. It hasn't always been a smooth road for video games, though. In 1983 to 1985, the video game crash happened, and many stores, such as this one here, were forced to go out of business. After a series of very bad game choices being pumped out into the market, the public just wasn't as interested in video games anymore. Nobody wanted to play these games that came out. Notoriously, E.T. there was actually so bad that many unsold copies were buried out in a landfill. It was to the point that you almost couldn't give away video games. They had lost the public's trust, and nobody wanted to spend the money that it took to buy games and keep the video game companies in business. Here are some examples of games that came out in this period and all contributed to the downfall of interest in video games. But of course, video games did make a comeback. With the rise of personal computers becoming more accessible and becoming more of a staple of most homes, video games just seemed like a natural fit for something to do on your brand new computers. So interest started to boom, and companies began pumping out some great titles to really win back the crowds. And though they were not a major player at the time, arcades still existed to help get people that interest in video games. Really cool games were coming out, and it was still a great place to go and spend a couple of quarters wasting some time with your friends. Offering people things outside of the video games that would help them show off their favorite characters and franchises became a really big deal. Pins like these were given away to really boost interest in different video games. Then, there were companies like Activision that actually began to have competitions involving their video games, where you could win these awesome patches to put on jackets, backpacks, whatever you wanted to do, and people would come from all over to watch these tournament championships of people putting their video game powers against each other. There's actually a huge amount of memorabilia that comes from different video games. Any little things that companies could think of to give away, they did it. And honestly, it worked. People wanted these little knickknacks and things that were based on their favorite characters. It was one thing to play the game, but to actually have a physical piece of it that you could hold, it really worked. Plus, it definitely gave you bragging rights among your friends if you could say that you had an exclusive pin that came straight from your favorite company. One of the more current trends in video games is actually giving the players a chance to somewhat create a game themselves. Things like Minecraft allow you to create an entire world. Here they had a modification of the original Doom game that actually was the entire museum itself. You could run around and see all the displays right here in the game. As a matter of fact, if you go to the National Video Game Museum website, you can play this game yourself and take a little virtual tour. It looks like we've found a checkpoint on our video game adventure. So let's relax and check out some really cool memorabilia. This is the actual cartridge from one of the Nintendo World Championships. Players came from all over to compete in different Nintendo games to decide who would be crowned the ultimate player. Here are some pristine condition Nintendo 64 games. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, still one of my absolute favorite games of all time. Twilight Princess on Nintendo DS, for Zelda fans out there, this was not actually the game. This was a demo that was created so that people could see what the game would be like. It was never a full game, it was just a demo that happened to play on the DS. These advertisements really stood out. Having these on the counter at your game shop would definitely get you excited to play. It's almost crazy how many exclusive systems and specialty systems have come out. This one by Marlboro actually came from smoking a lot of cigarettes. Obviously, that's not a promotion that they would run now, but it's interesting that back then that was something offered. Going way back, there has always been special editions and collectibles of different systems. Personally, I am a major Nintendo fan. It is my favorite video game fandom and just absolutely one of the best things around in my opinion. So it was really cool getting to see a lot of these original pieces and special edition things, some of which I didn't even know existed. Of course, good old Rob there. I would love to have one of those someday. We've got some special controllers for the Nintendo 64. Very unique and iconic. Earthbound, or Mother to some people. The Ultra Hand, which they actually made a video game about that you can get on the eShop. And this was some Hanafuda cards, which Nintendo actually started as a trading card company. Those cards there were some of the first ones they ever made over 100 years ago. And the Virtual Boy, one of the very first virtual reality games out there. Miyamoto himself, the creator of Mario and many other games, signed this Pikmin poster here. And then of course good old Mario, who has every kind of imaginable merchandise out there. Anything you could want with that plumber's face on it, you got it. And you know what? That is perfectly okay by me. Here's some props from the Mario movie, which I think we can all agree wasn't that great, but there is a new one being made that hopefully is going to redeem this original. Though it is really cool seeing the props and invitation to the premieres, different merch that came out around that time. Walk tall, be proud, be a Goomba. That's pretty funny considering Goombas in the game are extremely small. I will admit that Mario Mask is a little creepy. Probably not something a lot of people would want to jump to buy. But hey, those slippers look pretty comfortable. And good old Donkey Kong. Getting a peek at things I didn't even know existed was one of the best parts of this museum. This is the Nintendo 64, but it was actually outfitted with an experimental CD drive that you would use CDs instead of the traditional cartridges that we all know the Nintendo 64 for. And had to show off the cereals. I have actually tried a couple of these, the more recent ones. Most of them aren't that bad. You guys ever tried any of the special video game cereals? And these are some limited edition PlayStation 2s. A lot of them had very low numbers, like not more than 1,000 made, so if you got your hands on those, you've got quite a treasure in your hands. We have the iconic Pikachu Nintendo 64 with the colorful little Pokemon right there. And then a sewing machine that hooked up to a Game Boy and allowed you to put in your patterns for sewing. Warping ahead to stage 12. Just had to stop and look at these board games. Sure, video games are great, but sometimes you just want to break out a board game on the table and play with your friends. So a lot of these are of course pretty old, but I would not mind if video game themed board games wanted to make a big comeback. Some of these actually look really fun. We got Doom, Wizards of War, which I'm not even sure what that is. This was the Legend of Zelda board game. I would absolutely play this. Look at that. Looks just like the game. And then this awesome looking Pacman game. I'm not sure how it works, but that board alone, it looks really cool. More video game things that aren't quite digital is the array of more merchandise outside of the pins and patches we saw before that different video game companies and developers would give out to help promote the games. Quite a collection. We've got some amiibos down here that you actually can use to interact with things in the game, and they make really cool statues. We stumbled upon an actual living room here that you could just kick back, play a game, and see what it was like back in the 80s. Very old looking system here. But remember, at one point this was the height of graphics on video games. This is Stage 13. Welcome to my bedroom, or what I guess my bedroom would be in the 80s. Sometimes you just want to invite a friend over, play some video games, and kick back and relax. Gotta say, very cozy room. And I love that little gizmo over there. He's very cute. But let's move on. This was a portrait made of Rubik's Cube pieces of the great Keith Robinson. And pretty much this entire section was just talking about how much love and skill and devotion goes into creating video games. No matter what side of the console wars you may be on, no matter what genre or type of game you truly enjoy, at the end of the day, everybody is in it together. Everybody loves games, everybody loves that escapism. It's just something that we can all appreciate and respect in each other. Just to nail that point home, they have this mural here that was beautifully done, showing off some of the most beloved and amazing characters that video games have given us throughout the ages. In the bonus section, we just have some nice assorted collectibles and memorabilia, so please, enjoy. This section on Easter eggs inside video games was really cool. Not only that, but they actually hid several Easter eggs here in the museum. And for good measure, a few amazing t-shirts that I was very jealous of. There are plenty of chances throughout the museum to actually play some video games, but just to make sure you get that gaming in, they've built a full arcade right here and jazzed it up to look right out of the 80s and 90s. Make sure you stop by to learn about some of the biggest characters to come from arcade games, such as Pacman and Cubert. And of course, you can't have any attraction without an amazing gift shop at the end. This is really a chance to bring home some super cool collectibles. They had a bunch of awesome stuff, and it's guaranteed to help you empty out that wallet. Thanks for tagging along throughout this amazing video game adventure. My name is David. This has been Abnormal Voyages. We'll see you in the next level.